Now that we've seen what comes before the trigrams, we can take a closer look at what each trigram represents in nature and what is the rationale behind that representation. As the name suggests, a trigram is comprised of 3 strokes, either separated or whole. So obviously, let's start with the easiest one. If 3 yang strokes are being put together, then it signifies that this object is unbreakable, so people associate this with heaven, for it can never be severed. This is the Qian trigram, a symbol of strength and power. You can probably imagine what 3 ink strokes mean. It is the opposite of heaven, the earth, the ground, probably because it is observed that even the weakest plant sprout can break apart soil. This is the Qin trigram, the symbol of gentleness and the capacity to contain everything. Using these 2 trigrams as a basis, we can classify the remaining 6 trigrams into 2 groups. Either it is 2 yang or 1 yin, or 2 yin and 1 yang. The former can be interpreted as a movement relative to heaven, while the latter a movement relative to earth. So what moves beneath earth? Well, we may say tectonic plates, but back then, when there's a thunderstorm, people feel the ground shaking, and therefore associates this trigram to Zhen, or thunder. Even nowadays, the Chinese word for earthquake is deepen, using the character representing thunder. The corresponding symbol is movement itself. Well, probably there's no movement more violent than having the ground shaking. Moving up, what moves between earth? If you look at a river flowing, then you will notice it is moving between 2 pieces of land, even causing the soil to sink and form a canal. Therefore, people associate this with the Qian trigram, representing water and symbolizing indentation. If you rotate this trigram, you may even recognize that it resembles the seal script for water. On the top here, what moves above earth? You may say humans, animals, or even plants. They're all correct, but as an overarching system, it has to be something that is largest above ground, that it can cover all else. With that in mind, people turn to the mountain, which ironically looks like the most static thing possible. Of course, modern scientists will say otherwise. Therefore, the Gen trigram represents the mountain and symbolizes stability. Now, onto the movements relative to heaven. What moves below heaven? The wind. Despite coming from heaven, it is close enough for us to perceive it. Therefore, people associate this with the trigram Shin. And because there is no crevice that the wind cannot enter, the trigram is a symbol of penetration. Here comes an interesting one. What moves between heaven? If you've been to the Great Wall, you may notice beacon towers used to communicate emergencies. When the smoke rises, it moves and dissolves into the air, hence a sign of movement. Therefore, people derive the element of fire, or Li trigram, and uses it to symbolize beauty and glory, probably due to the glamorous patterns the fire presents. Finally, and perhaps the most surprising, what moves above heaven? Satellites? Aircraft? People don't have that back then. While people can't go any higher beyond heaven, they found another way of interpretation. They looked down and saw a big pond, and as there are waves lapping on the surface, they saw the sky whom the pond reflects, undulating. Therefore, he associated the element that moves above heaven as dui, or pond. Some may be confused, isn't that water? Well, one simple distinction to make is that water, or kan, denotes flowing water, while dui denotes big bodies of water that doesn't move much. As ponds can irrigate surrounding soil, bring forth new life, it is a symbol of blissfulness and joy. That was a lot to cover, but now you have a basic understanding of all 8 trigrams. As those trigrams represent a symbol or element, the expanded hexagrams tell more of a story. Next time we'll take a look at the first hexagram of I Ching, which is Qian, the hexagram of heaven. I'll see you then.